All right. Well, let's go ahead and get into it. Thanks so much for joining. This is our first meeting of the year. Happy New Year, everybody. I hope everybody had a great holiday season and is having a great start to the new year. We're really excited for the upcoming year for the Tableau user group. We're excited to get more engagement, and we're really happy that you all are here today. To start off with, when you sign in, I'm just going to go through the quick agenda. I'm going to do the welcome. I am Sekou Tyler. I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Sekou Tyler. I'll be leading today's session. We'll pass it off and have a community spotlight, talk date and time calculations with Alex, have a Kahoot quiz, and then we'll also talk about what we want to see in engagement for the Nashville Tug, and then we'll have the Nashville Tableau spotlight. But before we do that, I feel like our leadership team, we should introduce ourselves. So what we'll do, create a quick slide using my great, fantastic Photoshop skills. Not really, it's just a PowerPoint, but going to go left to right and introduce everybody on our leadership team. Everybody on this group does a great job of bringing this all together. And I don't know if there's newbies on the call today, but we'd love for you all to know who we are and introduce ourselves. So with that, I'll start and let Jim take it away.
Okay, very good. My name's Jim Daner. I live out in Fairview, and I'm recognizing some names out there. Nancy, I see you out there. Nancy and I have been in communication the last couple of weeks on something. It's good. It's good to see you out there. And we kind of recognize that we kind of met virtually, and we haven't met in person. But I think we got something that we'll take advantage of next month. Maybe we can meet virtually. I've been a Tableau user now for 7 years. I may know some of you from some of the work we do on the forum. I'm a 6-time forum ambassador, and I'm a 2-time visionary. And like I said, I live out in Fairview. Eric?
Yes, I'm Eric Howard. I'm a Tableau ambassador this year, first-time ambassador, and been a leader of the Tableau Nashville Users Group for going on 3 years now, I think, since the 2018 Tableau conference, and work at Vanderbilt Medical Center, do a lot of healthcare visualizations for the surgical practice there. So that's it for me.
And I'm Sekou Tyler. I am a two-time Tableau ambassador here locally here in Nashville. I work for a consulting firm called Lovelytics and been on the leadership team since last year. Yeah, it's been a year. So excited, love the team to work with, and excited to engage and connect with everybody. So I'll pass it to Alyssa.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Alyssa Williams. I also work at Lovelytics with Sekou. Unlike everybody else on the leadership team here, I don't have any fun Tableau titles other than just Tableau dork. I live in Pleasant View, which is just north of Nashville. So excited to be here. Excited for 2023. Lindsay?
Yes, I'm Lindsay Myers. I work at Vanderbilt University. I'm the Director of Operations in the Biomedical Research, Education, and Training Group. And we work with student data, faculty data, funding data in our enterprise. I started to attend Nashville Tugs back in late 2019 and joined the leadership team in 2021. It's been a valuable resource for me, and I hope we can provide good content for you. So I'm glad you're here, and we're happy to receive your feedback and incorporate that into our future meetings. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the introduction, everybody. So with that, we'll actually pass it to Lindsay now for the community spotlight. So it is your show.
Welcome. Today, I have invited Jennifer Vandenbrink to meet with us today and share her story about using Tableau and how she got here. I actually met Jennifer in late November at our data night out at the Monday Night Preservation Society, which was a really fun event. I encourage you guys all to come out for the data nights out in person. And we just had a fun time talking. So I wanted to let you guys hear about her story. So Jennifer, could you tell us how you started getting involved in TUG events, and also how you started using Tableau?
Well, I think starting to use Tableau is what got me into the TUG events. And in my previous position, I was doing population health research and analytics for community health needs assessments for critical access hospitals. They're hospitals in some of the most underserved areas, but are the most financially vulnerable. And I became very frustrated with the limitations of using Excel for that work. So I started looking for a better alternative to visualize this important data that I felt like we were collecting that was being disseminated to the public, but wasn't easily consumable. So I started researching Tableau and wanted to start to learn. And as soon as I got a position with my current company, which is Ancor Health, and the reason I got the position, they gave me a dummy data set and said, hey, use Tableau and show us what you can do. And it was the first time I had ever done anything. And I built a dashboard for them and they offered me a position. As soon as, and they've invested a lot in my training. I went through the entire Tableau training course. And as soon as I started taking the courses or going through the courses, I knew that there were so many layers to Tableau that I was going to be learning the bulk of the functionality from other Tableau users. And that's when I started attending events.
Yeah, I agree. It has been so helpful to learn from other people rather than just YouTube's or even just looking at, list of operations or things like that. If you can actually see somebody actively doing it and they can answer your questions, it's been immensely helpful. So what are the types of questions that I read about your bio a little bit, and I wanted to know a little bit more about the business questions that you were asking, not only to share with the public, but also to share with the internal stakeholders of the, hospitals or healthcare organizations. Like, are there examples that you could give us from each of public dashboards and more internal dashboards?
Yeah, primarily for external, we work with medical groups and hospitals to do provider scorecards, executive and revenue cycle dashboards. One of the first things that I did when I started with Ancor, we do compensation studies for companies that hire out like CHNAs and anesthesiologists, and we would do comp studies. And I started adding geospatial data to those comp studies, because if a person is sitting in New York and they're hiring in California, then where those cities that we get samples from don't really mean anything unless they can see them on a map, or it means more to them if they can see where they're, if the samples that we're getting are like very close to the area that they're looking to hire in, if it's a more rural area, if it's a more urban area, and it gives more clarity to those differences in compensation. As far as internally, and I was going to touch on this with one of the later questions, is my favorite project that I'm working on, is I'm actually building out a metric resource library for our company to sort of bridge the gap between our analytics team and our consultant team. It's an interactive workbook with dashboards for each metric, and they contain a narrative section that describes the metric and what goes into creating it, how it's calculated. It outlines what insights that metric provides to the client. It gives options for altering whatever trend the metric is showing. And it has a section where it will show what client data is required to reproduce that visualization, and has optional fields if they want to drill down further, or if they want to filter by practice or physician, or however they might want to filter, and what data would be required from them in order to create that visualization.
Great. And while you've been learning, it sounds like you took advantage of a lot of training resources. What are the ones that have been most valuable to you as you've continued to learn, or as new projects have come along that have forced you to learn new skills? Can you tell us about any resources that we might also glean from?
I really like some of the blogs that are dedicated to the design elements and visualization as art. There's Information is Beautiful. There's a subreddit that's Data is Beautiful. The Tableau community has been immensely helpful. I feel like there's not a question that I can come up with that hasn't already been asked and answered there. And I feel like 90% of them Jim's answered. I also like the junk charts that explain how data should be presented and why certain charts don't matter or don't work for certain sets of data. I think those are probably the most important. Those are the ones that have been the most helpful for me.
Great. Are there things in Tableau that you'd like to know more about that we might be able to offer in our Tableau Nashville user group?
This is hard. I come from a fine arts background, and I don't know if it's that or if it's just like an internal thing in my personality that I want to know everything. As soon as I start working with Tableau or Power BI or whatever, like I want to know everything, but it's also a little overwhelming when you get information that's out of context. And so when you need the right information when you need it, and if you are looking at information that is helpful, it doesn't really mean a lot to you if it's not helpful in your current situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's helpful to know. Well, thank you for sharing today with us. I really appreciate you spending time with us and sharing your story. And I think all of us can learn from some of those same resources. I did see that you, just on a side note, you really like kayaking and spending time outdoors. Are there any secret gems in Tennessee that you're willing to sacrifice and share with us?
No, I live on Percy Priest Lake. So I spend a lot of time there because it's close, and I have 3 dogs, so I don't have to put them in the car and haul them anywhere. So it's just really simple. And it's pretty like road less traveled out there. Not a lot of people go, but yeah, I mean, Percy Priest Lake is huge, and there's a lot of islands out there that we'll kayak to and kayak around and like picnic at and stuff. So yeah, just for simplicity's sake, I stay there.
Yeah, that sounds great. Well, enjoy your spring and summer, and we'll see you for a next data night out or a tug in person. So thank you so much, Jennifer. And I'll turn it back over to Sekou, and he'll introduce the next speaker for us.
Great. Thank you so much. That was great. Thanks for doing that, Jennifer. Thanks for leading that, Lindsay. All right. So for our speaker, we have Alex Morton, who will be talking about date and time calculations. So a really quick introduction on Alex. 10 years data analytics professional and has been a Tableau user since 2013. Alex has worked with well-known brands, McDonald's, Target, and Walmart. And Alex is currently in Nashville as a director of actual insight solutions. So with that, I'll pass it to you, Alex.
Unmute my screen there. Classic technical problem. So yeah, thank you for the quick introduction there. I was on the Tableau Spotlight last month. So if this sounds very familiar and it looks like the same slide, that's because it is. I am Alex Morton. The long story short on me is I've worked in enterprise analytics for a pretty long time, but I've also worked in consultancies as well. So I kind of have a unique approach to solving these data problems. I think I've worked at some big companies, and a lot of the fun at solving at big companies and solving big problems, but a lot of the time solving big problems doesn't necessarily move the needle a lot. It's something like McDonald's or Asurion, right? They're big ships and they take a long time to move. So at Actual Insight, we really work on enabling companies that don't have established data or analytics infrastructure, and really focused on trying to help them actually answer questions with data. I put this note in here that I specialize in developing self-service dashboards. And then really that kind of leads me into why I wanted to talk about date calculations. A lot of the time I'm building stuff in Tableau that I'm not necessarily the primary user of, right? I'm usually building stuff for other people to go in and start answering their own questions. So for an example, let's see if I can pull some of this up, right? Here's a dashboard we do for a company there where they're looking at different categories within grocery stores. You can see this is actually a different type of condiments within here. And the idea behind self-service being they could quickly go from looking at the different, categories of condiments around here to looking at the different maybe manufacturers. You can see how quickly that changed, and they can deep dive into this, but then also the ability to kind of look at different things like the trends across these different manufacturers and going across there. So only reason I kind of bring this up is just kind of highlight, I kind of bring a different approach usually when I'm building Tableau dashboards. I'm usually trying to build stuff that I don't have to update every time. And I can just throw new data in and be confident that the new data is going to update things with the right date calculations or the right fields the way I want them to be, and things can kind of just go harmoniously. So if you ever run into questions like that, feel free to reach out to me, but I would say that kind of leads me into a little bit of the talk I'm going to do on date calculations today. I want to make this useful for kind of all levels, so I'm going to just do kind of the basics of how to work with date calculations and maybe some of the techniques and tips and tricks I've collected over the years that help me be efficient when writing calculations or using things. And then I wanted to spend some time into some practical examples that I actually put into client dashboards. And, really that's meant to be a little bit of the art of the possible in terms of, hey, this would be cool if I could start doing this in this dashboard. And obviously I'll share this out or make sure that this goes with the follow-up so people can hang around at the end. I would also say that in this little workbook, I included some YouTube links to some very much more like traditional table calculations. So if you're having issues writing calculations and you want a person who has some of those Tableau accreditations, because I don't either, to kind of tell you how the correct way to be doing this stuff. There's a lot of really good resources out there to answering some of these Tableau date calculation fields. So let me do my quick little tips and tricks. I think first thing I'm going to say is this is the Superstore data set. So everybody should be familiar with this or have an ability to access this on their own. So if you want to follow along. And I always think everything starts in a Tableau calculator, or everything in a Tableau visualization really starts with a double click, right? Every time you double click on something in Tableau, Tableau is trying to figure out really trying to figure out what you're trying to do. And in all honesty, Tableau is a lot smarter than me. So, obviously it's a lot of, let me see if I can get that Zoom thing out of my way, right? It's a lot of trial and error when you might be first starting with date calculations or date fields in general, but you can see, right, if I just click on some stuff in here, you can see that it's actually put date part as part of the hierarchy here. So I can go from seeing my years across here. Maybe I want to change these into bars just so it's a little bit easier to see. And then I can go to quarters just by clicking here, and you can see that that's automatically going to expand out from here. What's also really great about dates is just like any other pill you put onto your Tableau visualization, if you right click, you get all the options, or you get all, a lot of options to go through within here. And you can see it may be confusing at first to notice that there's multiple versions that have the same name in terms of this is year, this is quarter, and you notice a little bit further down, this one's year and this one's quarter also. And this really will kind of come back up again when I talk about some of the date calculations, but there's a difference between a date part and a date trunk, right? When I say date part, I'm really talking about one specific part of a date. I'm talking about that year, or I'm talking about that quarter, or I'm talking about that month. Notice how on my axis here, I see the names of those different parts, but it's just that part, right? It's just January. It's not January 19, it's not January 22, right? It's just January. And that's what these first parts here, these are parts, right? Down here is what we call trunks, right? This is actually a truncation, or it's like a kind of a grouping of things that go in here. So instead of seeing month, right, if I do this trunk, now I can see I have those different months broken about the years, right? Because now this is a complete date. What's also cool about this is you can do things like combine date trunks and date parts. So if you wanted to show, hey, here's my different months right? These are the actual individual months right across here, but I wanted to color these things by the different years, right? This is actually a combination of a different date part and a different date trunk. One thing, let me see if I can, I think that's kind of sums up some of my stuff. So that's really how you go about navigating how to put the different dates onto your visualization. I want to talk a little bit about filters in here as well, just because it's a quick and easy thing to talk about. I'm going to jump to my tips and tricks, actually. So let's start back over. Let's say that we were starting with just sales. Has anybody had the issue where they add a date to their visualization, and it's a pain in the butt, because every time you add it on here, you got to right click, you got to pick this month, and then you got to go, oh, okay, I don't want them to be continuous, I want them to be discrete. And you go through and it takes you 3 or 4 clicks to add this on here every time. One of my favorite tricks, which honestly took me years, and you can admit that this took you years as well, is if you right click when you add something onto the visualization here, you actually get a menu that tells you, hey, do you want to add this as a date part or a measurement or a date trunk? And you can add these things on that way. I said I was going to talk about filters real quick. So everything that we've been talking about in terms of adding stuff on there, and I showed you that quick little trick, you essentially get the same menu if you add something onto the filters. You can see years, quarters, months. We can see what some of those things will look like. These are different date parts, but you can also do the different date trunks in here as well. I think I'm going to run out of time, but don't go a little bit quicker. So I'm going to talk a little bit about calculations in here as well, just because I have some tips and tricks too. Let's keep it in this visual right here. Has anybody ever been not really sure where to start about writing a date calculation? Maybe you're looking to find a particular month, or you're looking to find a particular year, but you're not really sure how to start writing the date calculations. Well, the first place to start is always kind of in our Tableau menu on the right-hand side here. Let me just make this a little bit that so you can see. If I look for just the date calculations in here, I get a list of what all those date calculations are. So I don't need to look for specific functions. The list of all of them are right here. And you can see if you pull on these different things, you'll notice that date parts, date trunk are really the kind of some common ones I've talked about already. There's examples about how to put these things in here as well. The one thing that's been really helpful for me when I'm creating these things is a lot of times I didn't know how to write the date calculation, but I knew how to create a visual for what I wanted to see. So let's say I wanted to do the different months, right, as a date part, but I wanted the different years to be my color here. So now I can see I have a different line for the different years, but I'm showing all 12 months, right? Well, let's say I wanted to write a calculation that would pull out that date month the way I wanted to. Any field that is on your visualization, if you have a calculation up like this, you can actually do something to the effect of drag and drop it into your calculation. So if you wanted to say, hey, I want month, that's to be a date part. If you pull that in here, it's actually going to write that date function for you. So now you can say things like, hey, maybe I just want this to be equal to 1. Right, what's date part equal to 1, right? If we put this on our filter here, we could see that that would just be, anybody? January, right? So now we wrote a calculation that would help us just to get to January. Some other fun date calculations in here. Is anybody keeping track of my time? How fast, slow am I going?
We have plenty of time today, so just
perfect. Okay, I won't go so quick. I want to talk a little bit about practical applications that you can use in visuals. The first one I'm going to talk about is, anybody ever had data and they wanted to create a calculation that would find the first day of the month, right? I usually have this problem trying to find this in Alteryx, right? And it's super easy in our calculation, or I'm sorry, like if we were going to do this visually here, right, we could just truncate down to month and we would have our months in here. But if you were trying to write a calculation and actually show it at the different line item, how would you go about doing that? That's when we would use that trunk that we had just kind of talked about. So we could say, you know, first, all right, first of the month. And we could say we want to do a, let me make this a little bit bigger. We want to do a date trunk. I want to know, I want to need to define what level I'm going to truncate this down to. Do I want this to be the year? Do I need this to be a month? Do I need it to be, you know, a week? And we're going to go with month, just so we have it. And then we're going to input the date that we're actually going to truncate down. So this, in all my examples, is going to be order date. So you can see here, I created this calculations first of the month. I'm actually going to make sure that this comes out as a date. And for the sake of showing what this does here in this field, we sorry, Zoom got in my way here. And I'm grabbing the wrong one. First of the month, right? I can go ahead and add this. You can see that Tableau is trying to make it that that year automatically when I add it in there. So I'm going to go ahead and say, I want this to be an exact date and I want this to be discrete. So I can see exactly what this date is. So this is pretty simple, but hopefully that you'll see how this is going to be useful in a second, right? So if I'm looking at all the different possible order dates in this data set, I can see the order date, but I can see what the corresponding first of the month is for those orders. So if I scroll all the way down here and look at all the order dates, right? Even down in April 15th, 2021, I can see that the first date of that month is April 1st, right? And this is, you know, I've kind of done this the hard way in terms of being able to just find this, but let's say that you are trying to do something like QC your data into Tableau itself. And not only did you want to know how much data was coming in at specific months, you wanted to know if you had an order date record for every day of the month in the months that you're looking at, right? So January has 31 days. Do you have 31 days worth of orders in your data set? Now you could do something like count distinct your dates and then you know, put in a number yourself and say, hey, is the count distinctive dates equal to 31 or is it equal to 30? But it's different for every month. And sometimes there's leap year. So then February becomes an issue when you try to do that. And so I'm going to write another calculation that's going to give me the last day of the month. And then we're going to be able to figure out what the difference is between the first day of the month and the last day. So let's talk about this first day of the month. I'm just going to duplicate this because it makes things easy for me in my head. I'm going to say last day of month. And so when I think about how I'm going to find the last day of the month, well, what I'm not going to do is take the first day of the month and then add days to it. I'm not going to do that. And I'm not going to add any amount of days to my order date. What I'm going to do is I'm going to say, I'm going to do two different date adds. I'm going to say, what's the first day of the month? And then I'm going to add a month to it and say, okay, if it's January, well, I really want to know what the next month is, but the day before the next, the previous day before the next month, right? And now I'm really confusing people with the way I'm wording this, right? So let's just do it real quick. We're going to say date add. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a month. I'm going to add quantity 1, which is the interval, to my first of month calculation here. So we can see, let's just add this in here so we can see it real quick, what I've done. Okay, great. So this kind of makes sense, at least with what I've been doing, right? Here's the order date, which is January 3rd. Here's the first day of that month. here is essentially the next month's first day, but that's not what I want to do, right? I wanted to come up with the last day of the month for this January 19th. And all I really am doing here is going to be like a nested date add calculation. So instead of writing another calculation, what I'm really going to do is say, okay, I want to add date add. Date add. I'm going to add a day. I'm not going to add a day. I'm actually going to subtract a day from this calculation that I already did here. So it's really kind of a nested calculation like that. And I'm a big fan of like, I'm not always super confident when I write date calculations. So I usually hit them up and I leave apply, right? And now this makes sense. I have my first of the month, I have my last of the month, and this would make sense all across the board. So, you know, if I scroll all the way down, I can see what's going on here. What's some practical application for this, right? So we talked a little bit about if we were going to QC our data. You know what, let me jump back real quick. Where did I put it? I kind of jumped to the next part with actually telling you what the, you know, the prestige on this one is, right? So now that I have the first of the month and now I have the last of the month and I've been doing date adds, now I can figure out what the difference between those two things are, right? So what's the difference between our first and, you know, last difference, right? And we're going to say that is a date diff calculation. We're going to talk about it in days. A day. And our starting date is going to be our first of the month and our last of the month. It's already in there. So this really is a very simple thing. It says, hey, here's my first of the month, here's my last of the month. I just want to know the days difference between those two things. And if I go ahead and add this on here, and I'm going to say that this is actually the maximum, because remember, it's happening at a line item level in here. It says 30. Why does it say 30 when I know there's 31 days in January? Oh, I saw Lindsay lean forward and put her hand on her face. She's either paying attention to me or doing something else, right? Because when you're doing math with calculations, right? What's today minus today, right? That's 0. So when you're using date calculations, you got to figure out like, okay, do I need to add a day back in when I'm doing these things? And this is one of those instances where you would. So we could just go ahead and write it's our difference in here. And we could just add 1 to that day. Now this should give us all the right amount of days, right? So for January, right, there's 31 days in here, but February's got 28 days. So now we could do something like QCR data, right? Here's the same measurements we were looking at, but we could write some type of logic to say, okay, I'm looking at the month of date running down my x-axis here, and I could count the distinct order dates that are in here. So in January 19, I only had orders for 22 days, right? Are there any months, and so here's the max days and months that are in here, right? So are there any days where we actually had all 31? Actually, yeah, right? December 2020, there was 31 days worth of orders in this data set. And you know, you can do some things with this in terms of, you know, maybe you don't need all of the days. You know, I wrote this QC calculation to, you know, say, hey, does the count distinctive days equal the max days in a month? But maybe you only need, you're doing some sampling and you really only need to make sure that you have 80% of the data, right? You could change these calculations to say, okay, yeah, there's only 25 days here in March, but you know, that meets my threshold for some of this stuff. This has been a little bit of like a kind of on the fly thing, but really what I want to do and just kind of close up on is some of these views where, you know, these are live views the visuals and the calculations I have are actually live and real dashboards that I have going out for clients, and I think could be practical things for people who may have, you know, some experience and, you know, can literally copy and paste the formulas out of here. The first is a month-to-date tracker. And this is actually pretty simple. There's a few different ways to do it, but I've done this entirely doing date calculations. And so you can see what's on my x-axis is the days in the month. So today is the 11th, right? So 11 would actually be part of the x-axis here. And then the y-axis is my month-to-date sales. And so this would be useful for somebody who's maybe they're a sales leader and they're trying to make sure that they're hitting their monthly goal, or they want to make sure that they're beating last month's numbers. And there's some pretty simple ways to do this. When you think about the visualization itself, it's a very simple running calculation, right? So the table calculation here is sales, but there's a running total going on this sales. And we talked a little bit about the difference between a date part and a date trunk before. And really what we're using here is just this day part for our order date. We're just looking at just that date. A little bit of the magic is happening here in the coloring of what's going on. You can see that there's this month versus last month in this. And why would I do this instead of just saying, well, just put, you know, the month truncated, right? You could filter to the last 2 months and just do the truncated there. And you can, but there may be some use cases where you want this month, last month to always be derived by the data that's in here. So if new data comes in, right? So this is for October 22. You can tell because I got the tooltip up here still, or the headline. But let's say you're going to throw, maybe the data gets updated every day, and you want to be confident that this is calculating based on this every time. So let's look at this month, last month. And you'll notice in here, it's just this guy right here. So then this month, last month. Right. I'm using some of those calculations we already talked about, and I'm essentially doing the same exact thing I did to create the first of the month, last of the month, right? I'm writing a calculation with the dates that instead of creating a new date, I'm actually creating a string. And you'll notice I did a date trunk, and I said, is the month, right, of the order date equal to the date trunk month of the max, right? I have a field in here that essentially tells me what's the max order date across my entire data set. It's a level of detail calculation that's fixed to the whole data set. But I'm essentially saying, does my order date equal the same month year as the last day in my data? Same month year there. And then for the last month period, I'm doing the same thing, but I'm subtracting a month from that from the end date. So instead of saying, hey, is the same month as my last month? I'm subtracting a month from that. So if the last date of my data is October 22, is it the same month as the month previous, which would be September 22? And then I can use this field, which is a text field, as the dimension in here and not actually use a date calculation. I've kind of embedded the date into the calculation in here. And why might this, you know, there's a lot of different ways to do this, but the thing I try to do is to think about, you know, if the data gets updated, and I sneakily put a data source filter in here so I can play with this, right? So let's say that the data gets updated in here, and instead of, you know, 10/11, it gets updated in 2 days, and now it's through 10/13. Okay, so now my visualization still stays updated. It pulled in that last 2 days. We can see these things stayed the same, but if I go to something more, I might go a little bit deeper into an update. Let's say that this hasn't updated for a while, but then it's gonna get updated in November sometime. November 3rd, which is my birthday, gets updated, right? Okay, now everything updates in here the way I want it to. This month still stays this month, but now it's pulling in November 22 versus, you know, the last month, and gets updated. I can stop for questions. I'm doing this. I got one last thing. It'll be a little bit quicker. I'm not going to go through the whole math because it would take a little bit of time. But any questions, concerns on this one so far? Cool. All right. This is kind of like, this is the one I'm proud of, right? So if you've worked in Tableau and it's taken you a really long time to create that calculated field or create that visualization, and you've been pining over it for months, weeks, years in order to do it, this is my essential version of that. So happy to share it with everybody, but talk a little bit about why I build dashboards, right? I'm usually building dashboards for other people, right? I'm not usually the first person to use it, or I'm not usually the primary user. Other people are using the dashboards that I create. So I want to give them as much flexibility as possible, but also having control about how things are displayed. And dates usually present a very tricky way about going that, in the sense of, let's say I wanted to give somebody the ability to select the specific dates of the start and the end that we were looking at. Which is great if they know what they're doing, in the sense of, hey, I know that I'm always going to select the start and end of a month, right? Okay, that's fine, because then I can do some things there. But what if people aren't going to kind of adhere to your parameters? How can you kind of error handle through people selecting dates on their own? And this is kind of my solution to that. So you'll notice here, start and end selections that are driven by parameters. And you can see this one goes from January 1st to March 31st. And you can see in my header here, it tells me, okay, this is 3 months ending 3/31, which makes a whole lot of sense. But let's say somebody comes in here and says, hey, I don't want to look at that date. I want to see this through March 4th. Okay, that's fine, but I want people to have the ability to customize it, but now I'm not looking at months, and I need to actually shift the way I look at things. So instead of looking at months, you'll see that this actually updates to say this is 9 weeks ending 3/4. Why might that be important, right? Well, months, right? If you're looking at January and you want to compare to years previous, it's pretty simple. You just say January versus January. But if you have a time frame that doesn't necessarily line up to months, the days can sometimes be shifted. So if I'm looking at just the first week in January, that's not always the same days of the week, is essentially what I'm trying to get to in here. So this is January 1st through the 7th. As you can see, this is 1 week ending 1/7. Now, this is that value there. You can see it's the sales. The thing that I've kind of kept in the lurch here is this second column, which is this difference in sales. And a lot of the times, it's, you want to show what the current value is, but you also want to be able to show a comparison as well. And you can see this drop down allows people to select what their comparison time frame is. So you could see I've had this set on a year ago, but you could also have this set to prior, and the visualization would change here. So let's kind of go back to what I mean by, what is this doing in the background? I'm going to keep this at the 3 months. You can say, okay, this is 3 months ending 3/31, and you can change this from prior or year ago, right? Well, how is this working in the back end, right? This is kind of this data buckets explained. I'm doing something really similar to the this month, last month in the month to date calculation. I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but all the fields are in here on the left-hand side if you wanted to go through it. But I'm essentially writing logic that uses those parameters and then tells us how to bucket those dates into those current, prior, year ago, right? Just like I did with the this month, last month. So you can see this kind of explained here. If I have this 1/1 through 3/31, right? Well, my current time, right? If I look at the min order date and the max order date there, you can see that those dates line up. And this is automatically calculating the year ago, which says, okay, that was January through March 22. This is January through March 21. But it also tells us what the prior is, right? So this is the 3 months before that time period. But let's talk again a little bit about what I said on like a weekly basis, right? Let's say I wanted to just look at the first week of the year sales wise? Well, you'll notice here the current lines up still. This is 1 through 7, and this makes a lot of sense, right? This is the 7 days before that, but my year ago is actually shifted from 1-2 to 1-8. And why is that? It's because I'm trying to line up the correct days of the week here from a sales perspective. So I know this is, 1-1 through 1-7 is a Sunday to Friday. And if you look at 21 or January 2021, you would notice that the correct Saturday to Friday week is actually 1-2 to 1-8. So I'm still looking at the same week from the year prior as opposed to the actual date, right? Because when you're talking about somebody, in the grand scheme of things, this may not matter very much, but when you're talking about like a retailer, like maybe McDonald's, right, whose business is very different from, a Saturday to a Wednesday, right? Sometimes those matter, and you want to make sure you pull the right days of the week that way. So that's kind of how this idea of these buckets work. Again, that's very simply just kind of set your date, right? The question might be, well, what happens if you don't choose months or weeks, right? It actually defaults to days, and to do the same days from the year. But this has been my hopefully someone saw something in here and said to themselves, oh, that's actually kind of a useful or interesting way to approach these date calculations. And I would say, hopefully we'll find a way to kind of get this document out to people, and so they can kind of go through and explain why there's easier ways to do what I've completely complicated in here, but open to any feedback or questions at the moment.
I think there's a question from, I hope I'm saying it right, Ankasha. Am I saying it right?
Yes. Hi, my name is Akansha, and thank you, Alex, for the great presentation. You mentioned multiple times that you're creating this for other users. So other users, they are using the creator license, or are they using Explorer or Viewer license?
Great question. My company is a consulting organization, so I had thrown out this up here just so you guys could kind of see like the way that I deliver stuff. And of course, essentially what I'm doing for delivery is embedding my Tableau server into my own, custom web portal for people to kind of go through, which it kind of looks like this. So not only date calculations, but we're having like embed issues or embed questions about how to take your dashboards and to put them in your own kind of web page that looks something like this. Happy to help out with stuff like that.
So you created this web application yourself, or there is another team dedicated to that?
Great. So this this guy is essentially, if you've ever used the Tableau embed functionality, like in your dashboards or from Tableau Public, where you kind of copy the embed code in there.
Right.
This entire piece, right, all the way from the blue outline to the dashboard itself, is just an iframe that's embedded into a web page here. Okay. So I'm sneakily making this look like it's a real customized web portal, but the truth is I'm just kind of copying and pasting my dashboards from my own Tableau server in here.
Okay, so other users doesn't need to have any licenses. You just
so they need to have the same viewer licenses you have on your Tableau server, right? So if you do like Tableau Public, and you say, hey, this, and you'll notice here, right? This is actually that demo dashboard that I've been showing, right? This is it in my Tableau Online instance. And you can see just how like, oh, if you're familiar with Tableau server, right? It looks pretty much like this, but I still have all that, Tableau, great functionality in here, but I've really just kind of made it look like it's in my own little web page.
Right. So I have been using Tableau Desktop and Public recently. My organization is comparatively new in using, so we purchased the Tableau Cloud license, and I'm trying to figure it out. And this presentation is so great. And so we didn't went through this server because of just a starting point. So we went through the cloud, and yeah, that's why I asked this question.
To answer, now that I understand the question better, to answer your question, you need viewer licenses if you're going to put stuff on a server for other people to see.
Okay. Yeah, I did purchase a viewer license and I have my own creator license. And I was curious that if I should buy Explorer license for the end users so that they can explore more. And what is your experience so far in your organization?
Yeah, I mean, that's the way we do things on our end, right? We essentially buy Tableau viewer licenses for anybody that's our customer that needs to see their customer dashboards, and we just have our set of creators that are curating the dashboards for them.
Okay. No need to buy Explorer, right?
No.
Okay, awesome. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Alex. That was actually a great conversation between you all too about the different licensing structure. That was fantastic. So that was great. I really enjoyed it. I learned a couple of things, a couple of calculations as well. And then I also learned your birthday was November 3rd. So I'll be on the lookout for your birthday, Alex. So with that, I'll pass it to Eric, who will go through the Kahoot quiz.
Well, thank you. And I will add on to Alex's answer. I have a Tableau site, and almost everybody on my site are viewers. I've got a couple power users that I let be explorers, but most people don't want to do that. So you can get away with a lot of viewers and go that route before you start spending money on Explorer licenses. So I put the link in the chat, so you can go to kahoot.it and join with that code. And as soon as everybody gets joined, we will get started. Today, we're going to talk about Tableau certifications. Tableau is running a special right now on discounted training through the end of the month on certifications. So if you buy it by the end of the month, you can use those training options at a later date. You don't have to do everything by the end of the month. To kill some more time, I'll say we're going to have an in-person event next month at noon at the Nashville Software School, which is just right near the intersection of 440 and I-24 and 40 near the airport. So if everybody can come out, we would love to see everybody there. And Tableau changed the way that we could give out prizes. So this is just for bragging rights. If you actually come out to one of our in-person events, we'll have swag. And if you're a winner on the Kahoot quiz, we will give you first choice at the swag table when you come to the events. So that's an extra bonus for coming to the events. All right, well, let's get started, and anybody else can go ahead and join as we're going along. So this is a certifications-oriented quiz. Which are real Tableau certification options? Multiple choice, choose all that are correct. Server certified professional, data analyst, desktop specialist, or data scientists. Which of those are actual Tableau certification options? All right. Data scientist is not one of the options. Good job, everybody. And for Kahoots, the speed you answer is helps you score better. What are the benefits of getting certified? You're entered in the Tableau talent directory listing, downloadable e-certificates, you get a discount at the Tableau conference, or you get a digital badge. And the only incorrect answer there is you do not get a discount for Tableau conference. Sorry. Which is the highest Tableau certification? A certified associate architect, a server certified professional, a data scientist, or the certified associate consultant? And good job. Correct answer, certified associate architect. I don't think I actually know any of those, but all right. Tableau offers these exam preparation options: paid online courses, paid in-person courses, free monthly instructor-led webinars, and free online instructor-led courses. All right, good job. Yeah, no free online courses. How much does it cost to take one certification exam? $100, $250, $500, or $1,000? This is actual take the exam. You don't have to go to do any training. You just know your stuff. You can go take the exam and get certified. All right, correct answers are $100 and $250. Greg B is at the top of the list. Way to go, Greg. And here's the answer. The desktop specialist is $100. Most everything else is $250. And here's the link to where I got that information from that broke all of that out. How much does it cost to take one Tableau readiness course? $100, $250, $500, or $1,000. So this is if you want to go online and get trained by some professionals, how much can you expect to spend? Correct answer is $1,000. That's the full price, but through the end of the month, you can get that for $500. All right, Greg is barely hanging on. How much? Oh, there you go. Standard price is $1,500 through the end of January. So Tableau is currently offering discounts on which exams? It's not everything. You can do certified professional, data scientist, data analyst, or desktop specialist. Correct answer is data analyst and desktop specialist. Probably their two most used certifications. So which certification should most people get first? It's probably the easiest to get. Would it be desktop specialist, certified professional, data scientist, or data analyst? And correct answer is desktop specialist. Ooh, Evan took the lead. Okay, what are the other ways to learn Tableau? Free training, Tableau in school, data literacy for all, or engaging with the Tableau community. This really is an easy one. They're all correct. You can do all of those and learn Tableau. All right, so Evan is the winner. Greg B is a close second, and Pam, oh, way to go, Pam, came up from behind. All right, thank you all. I will stop sharing and hand it back to Sekou.
All right, appreciate it. Great job, everybody participated. That was a great quiz. I even learned some stuff on there, so great job putting that together. So what we will talk about now, next steps, is to discuss what do you want to see as part of the Tableau user group. So really want this to be conversational, involved. We see we have 26 participants on here. This is more, we introduced ourselves earlier as the user groups and as the leaders of the user groups. And what we really want is participation of how can we make this better for the community. We want to be participant, in person, online as well, but we want to see, what's valuable for the community. And Couple things I want to call out specifically is if you go to our actual user group website, you'll see that all of our meetings for the year are actually there. So the times are there, you know, there's not necessarily a shocker when the events are going to be planned at. The dates are there as well. So kind of calling it out because without the community necessarily being there, we don't have a community group. So as far as like planning and stuff, you see the dates and everything that you have, you know, it's out there on the website. That way it's not necessarily a shocker. So if you plan around it, you know, there's some information there. So I want to call it out specifically. Another thing that we did, if you haven't noticed in the email, is we actually created a survey. So we created a actual survey to get some results. And if you haven't seen it, I'll go ahead and post it in the channel here. And we are data people and we understand what data means. You have to have some type of intake process. So this is our way of actually, you know, getting more information about the local community or the community in general, and understanding, you know, what is valuable in regards to content and sessions, you know, so on and so forth. So if you have not already done this survey, please do it, knock it out so that we can see the information. But what we're going to do here is just quickly kind of go over some of the results that we have from this survey. Previously, we expect to refresh and see some different results, but one thing we have is a dashboard, so we're going to use our Tableau resources. And one thing that we did get is that we got a total of 13 responses from the survey that we had built out. But one cool thing is that all the responses were 100% local. So I think it's pretty cool to see that, you know, we got some local feedback and some local information within the survey results. One of the biggest questions that we asked was, how often do you use Tableau products as part of your current role? And the majority of people use it every single day, which is cool. You know, we want to make sure that if you're using this, you know, every time that we're connecting with you. But it was cool to see that some people are using it a few times a month or still being involved, or a few times a week as well. Another thing we looked at and saw is, you know, how important is it for you to meet fellow Nashville Tableau users? So this one was interesting to me, and I want to stop on this second page and kind of get open the floor to dialogue here. Is me personally, when I saw this question, I thought there would be more of a very interested aspect of networking and actually connecting with people. There are some interested and mildly interested, and then it's not important at all. So I'm curious, you know, the people here in this open floor dialogue, how important is some of that connection, having time to meet other people in the community, connecting, you know, how important is that for you? And is it a thing where you want to do it in person and connect, or you want to do breakout rooms, or you want to do like chats? Like, how are different ways that you would like to connect with different people? So I'll stop talking and open the floor to see if anybody has any feedback on that piece.
I think they're busy taking, I think they're busy taking the survey. I keep seeing responses come in.
Okay.
I did see Eric Weber raise his hand.
Yeah, hey everyone. I know I met a lot of you at the last event, but I'm working at Nissan right now. We're in the process of bringing on Tableau, so we're kind of the newbies of the crowd, and I haven't really learned everything. So for me, when I think of like what I want to get out of this group is just we'll be starting from scratch on a lot of things and really trying to figure out what all new tools we can unlock with Tableau. And so, you know, especially as we learn more and we try to come up with various reports that be beneficial, yet starting from scratch and everything. For me, it'd be beneficial just to speak with other users. Maybe they've had ideas or similar reports or data points that they look for, stuff like that. So that's really what I'm looking for as I start to attend these meetings and just grow my knowledge of it.
So to expand on that a little bit, like understanding, is it more like use cases like here's how I use Tableau to solve this problem, or here's a technique that I've used before? Like, you know, as a newbie, what would you like to learn more? Yeah,
well, when I say, you know, we're starting from scratch, I mean, we're really starting from scratch. So right now we're going through kind of like a data mining phase, just see what all's in the system and how do we connect the dots between the different areas, make them work together. And so, you know, we're going through the system and seeing, okay, what information is available. Let's get them in one grid, and then we can start to see how do we pull these things together in the ways we look at it. So that's what we'll be working on for probably about the next 2 to 3 years, just developing those reports and getting them to where they are formatted for, you know, each department has their own needs and they want to be able to do what they want to do, you know, and not just have standard reports, but really be able to customize them for everybody's use.
Got it. Makes perfect sense. So from like a content perspective, would like entry level, Tableau 101 sessions, would that be something that'd be valuable for you or others in the group, kind of starting from the basics?
I'm sure it would be for me. I doubt that's the case for everybody else in the group, though.
Okay.
Sekou, there's a number of posts coming in, or a number of comments coming in on the chat about timing. And they all revolve around, they like networking, they like to get together, but timing is an issue. And I'd kind of like to probe on that. There's a question up there that 62% of the people like the 3:30 to 5 o'clock time, but maybe that doesn't work if we're talking in-person events. Does anybody have a thought on that?
Oh, yeah, I can't speak for everyone else, but for me, I mentioned I'm usually working, so usually it's easier for me if it's like 5:30 to 7, because like for online, I'm also working now, but it's just like an hour thing, like meeting I can attend. But it's harder to take off like 2 hours to travel to the in-person event and then travel back and stuff during the workday.
So I want to add here that I work like a hybrid mode, and basically I work from office most of the time, and this I can attain because it is virtual during this time period between 3 to 5. But if it is in person, I will definitely prefer after 5:30 or 5 at least.
Okay. End of the day.
So, like, and I see Jeff's comment on the line, and this would be a general question. If it's online, if we're doing our virtual sessions during the day is fine, but if we're doing something in person, if you can make it, preferably it would be after hours or something, or even lunchtime according to our results, but sometime in that time frame to be able to connect. Is that a right way of thinking about it?
Yes, you're right.
And I know, like, we didn't, and I wrote these questions, so you can totally toss me under the bus. We didn't specify like, hey, does 12 to 1, 3:30 to 5, or 5:30 to 7 work better virtual or live? So like if we were to do an in-person event from 5:30 to 7, that would be preferable to a virtual event 5:30 to 7. Is that what I'm hearing? Okay.
Yeah.
And so like 12 to 1 does the same, like that lunch break hour, in person, virtual. Is there a preference for that one?
If it was midday, I'd prefer online. Since I work from home, I wouldn't be able to get into Nashville. I've made a couple of the Brentwood meetups in person, but that's just because it's close by.
Got it. And does that same concept apply to the 3:30 to 5 as well then? So
Yeah,
pretty much
it's much
anytime
easier.
during the workday. Okay. Sorry, Sekou.
No, this is great. This is, like I said, organic conversation to talk and get information. So to the point of virtual, we go back to in person, but to the virtual aspect of it, as far as connecting, like, would it be helpful to have a time slot to have people connect with one another to still have that, again, networking feel of connecting with other users? Or is it truly, I care about the content, I'm here for the session, and then, I'll talk to y'all later? Like, would the community like a time frame to talk to others? I.e. breakout rooms or connections or somehow, but some dedicated time to do some networking.
Seems like we did some breakout rooms at the very beginning when Nick was running it, or beginning when I started joining in 2020. We had a few breakout rooms. We'd be there for a few minutes, chat with each other, and then get onto the program.
We've done that. I know Tableau has access to another platform that seems better for that. Jim, do you remember what the name of that is?
The
Remo.
platform's called Remo.
Remo. So, I mean, we can schedule some events like that on Remo, and then you can like designate specific tables for specific topics, and it gives the individual the ability to move around to different tables instead of doing the 2-minute random swap that Zoom does for rooms.
I like
And-
what you've been doing so far, where you've had a couple of online and then one in person, like once a quarter or whatever. That seems to be working out pretty well.
Hey, Pam and everybody else, a question on that. If we have an in-person meeting after 5 o'clock, do y'all want that to be the same type of format meeting where we're doing content? Or is that a social get-together? Because we have gotten some feedback that, geez, after 5, I don't want to be in a classroom. I don't want a lesson. I just want to meet people and enjoy myself. But I mean, it's your meeting. We want to do what you want to do. So we'd love some feedback here.
And I'll put out there, one of the things we've talked about for the in-person is to do some of the sort of problem solving type of meeting formats where you have data doctor or it's just get together and discuss specific issues people are having with dashboards, and not really this sort of training that we do with the virtual meetings. And we're still planning on having data nights out every 3 months.
So,
And those will all be in the evenings.
so it sounds like there's, the networking piece of virtual ease of use, connecting and still want to connect with the environment, but then after hours for in person as well. In regards to like content and giving out like sessions and stuff, is it relevant, do you think, and I'll pick on Nissan at this one, if someone came in and spoke specifically about car operations content, about a business use case, would that get more people in a particular industry out? Is industry specific content relevant, or do we want more high level Tableau, just, here's how you do this in Tableau? Like what would you think get more people out or connected?
Obviously having a car related is going to get more people out. But where our situation now is people have to be able to visualize what it can do, and so when we do have a couple of Tableau experts, contract employees that have been putting together some schedules to use that pull from our real financial data. When people see it, we get a lot of interest based on what we can go. So I think we're still in the we're so far behind that people just can't really visualize what it can do to really see the benefit of it.
So Sekou, how you pronounce your name?
Sekou.
Sekou, yeah. I have an insight. So we can submit some kind of, the problem areas that we are facing or the stuck points in our day-to-day life. If we can submit in advance, and the coordinators can decide that which topics to pick, or maybe assign a 101 for that particular problem areas, that will be very helpful.
Right. Got it.
That
So what
would be a good format for Remo.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. We
So
can
I
assign
guess-
the breakout room. Yeah.
Okay, got it. So in essence, that looks like I'm a user of community. I'm stuck on this issue. We might have, 15, 20 minutes, however time just allotted to trying to help figure out common problems. Is that kind of what you're thinking?
I'm thinking that let's say we are like 10 people, everyone is getting stuck at some point. So we have 10 use cases, and we can vote it out to revolve around the entire presentation or a section of presentation to resolve this. Or maybe we talked about the 101 session. So anybody can pick that stuck point and say that, okay, I'm willing to volunteer on this and have a discussion on this person, whoever raised this use case. So we can go around anyway, or we can all have this presentation that if you decide to, okay, I'm willing to give a presentation on this stuck point, and everyone will be like, we're benefited by listening to that, the solution or the use case discussion.
Got it. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah.
Like that.
So another thing, which we're thinking about delivering content and making this collaborative effort, there are online challenges where people can do. One example I just pull it up real quick. It's called Makeover Monday. But would a working session to, do the latest challenge or look at a challenge together, would that be something that, would be of interest of with the group? We all have the same data set. We're all working together, and whether it's presenting or connecting or figuring out, would that be a fun topic to do?
Sure, could be a one section. So if you're setting the agenda, then this could be a one agenda that is a very beneficial, that everyone is on same page. And the recommendation that I'm giving to all the stuck points could be another agenda. So we can go around any way we want. And but these could be the elements of our next meetups.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks, you got some positive feedback in the chat on that also.
Yeah, I'm looking at it. I'm reading through it. So yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's a good idea.
Awesome. Okay. And then I think what else was there? So look at the results and pull it back up. And we talked about just the different type of sessions and interested in time. Speakers, we had 28, 29 people. I'm going to put some people on the spot here. Anybody interested in speaking actually locally? And you think about it, and we can even, well, let me ask another question. If you've ever thought about speaking, but you're nervous, has anybody had that thought of, I would love to be able to deliver some type of session, but I just don't know where to go or how to do that? Shara, okay. So we have Shara. So, okay. So that's a great one. Because what we want to do as well, we're trying to get more local speakers here with Nashville, and get more people involved. And I think this could be an opportunity for those who are comfortable speaking, kind of helping out as well, to get that first one over the hump. So that could be something that we think about, of how do we get more speakers involved who want to do it, but then, just haven't done it yet.
I saw
I'm sorry, listen.
No, go ahead.
One additional thing here, because I saw some things come up in the chat. You don't have to present about Tableau content. You can present about what you do. You can present about yourself or about your journey in Tableau. So if that would make you feel more comfortable, we would love to have that also. Okay. I'm sorry, Alyssa, go ahead.
No, I'm just going to echo that. I mean, I saw, I think 2 people say, I would love to do this, but I'm such a newbie, or I agree. And some of my all-time favorite sessions, even as somebody who has used Tableau for like 7 years, are sessions where people are like, man, I wish I knew these 3 things when I first started in Tableau. So even just like, I wish I knew when I started, or I want to know now that I'm starting, those sessions can be like some of the most fun sessions that I've ever been to. So don't let that hold you back, because there's a lot more newbies than there are experts. So build the community.
Great. And okay, perfect. And I think we have a couple people signed up.
Let me just reinforce that with Alyssa, and some of you know I have a blog out there, and Ken Flurlodge and I are rather close, and we've talked about this very issue. The things that resonate on our blogs and the things that get the most hit on our blogs are what you might consider the most basic newbie type content. Whenever we put out something that we're really proud of and we say, man, this is really great, it just dies. But when we get down to the basics, and we get down to, well, why am I getting aggregation errors? Or, why doesn't my table calculation work? Those are the things that just take off. And those are the things that have the most interest. So we hear you.
Cool.
Okay. Well, this is great insight. I think this is a great conversation that we've had. Don't have any additional questions right now. Leadership team, y'all have anything additional?
I do not.
Not me.
Okay.
This was great. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, thanks everybody who spoke or made a comment or what have you, and brought attention to all this information. Again, we're we do this for the community. We only want the community to be involved. I do have a personal challenge. So if you are here and you're using Tableau and there are more people that work with you that use Tableau, invite them to our February session, invite them to our March session, bring a friend, bring a colleague, bring somebody. We want engagement to pick up. We want more numbers. So personal challenge, everybody is listening to this, invite the next person online, especially the person that works at Nissan. Thanks for your, all your comments, but we'd love to see, more Nissan people and Vanderbilt people and so on and so forth. So that is a ask of mine, I would say.
Sekou, I've got one slide on this last, on the next coming meeting and a few announcements.
Cool. And it's all yours.
Okay, and I will pull up one quick slide here. Okay, just real quick. And by the way, Eric at Nissan, we would love to we would love it if Nissan would raise their hand and say, yeah, come on out and host a meeting at our place. We'd love to do that.
I'll run it by.
We'd love to hear about what you're doing with it. Yeah, I think I know your boss. I'd love to talk to him about that. Okay, first of all, if you're not on the latest version of Tableau, the latest version of Tableau that's out there right now is 22.4. Okay, that's the one that's just released. And I know some of you have internal IT folks that kind of control when you update and when you upgrade. But the latest version is 22.4, and there's a lot of good stuff in there. A couple of additional things. TC23 is going to be a 3-day event. It was originally announced as a 2-day event. Just this morning, they have made a decision that it's going to be a 3-day event. It's going to run from May 9th through the 11th in Las Vegas. And I am definitely planning on going, and I hope to see you there. Visionary nominations. If you've got somebody out there or you want to nominate yourself as a Tableau visionary, those nominations are open now through the end of the week. And this is the link to go out and if you want to just grab that Sekou and drop it in the chat, or maybe I need to do that. That's the link where you can go out and nominate somebody. Self-serving, shameless promotion for the newbie group. Some of you know that I co-lead the newbie group with Karl Schulte in Germany. Our next meeting is January 19th, and this is the link to sign up for that. At that meeting, we're going to have Klaus and I are going to be talking about use cases, and we're going to talk about use cases for KPIs. And then our guest speaker is going to be Harveen, and Harveen is one of the product managers at Tableau, and she is going to be talking specifically to newbies about resources available on Tableau Public and throughout the community, and how they can get involved using those resources as a learning tool. So if you have interest in that, sign up for the meeting. There's plenty of room. That meeting does take place at 11 o'clock in the morning Nashville time. It covers all of the Americas and Europe and Africa, and that time works out in those different time zones. And then if anybody has a job opening they'd like to promote, now would be the time to promote it. I know JLL is looking for additional people. Now, we've got our next meeting here scheduled for February 8th at noon, and we plan to do that as a live meeting. But after today's,
we may rethink that.
We might have a little discussion among ourselves. So it says, stay tuned. We hear you, and we hear about what is a good time and that sort of thing. So this time might be a little bit fluid right now, but we'll be getting back to you on that.
I will say our March meeting is going to be day to night out, and it's going to be in Cool Springs. So all those Nissan people can come out and have some free drinks just down the road from the office.
Okay, very good. Very good. Anybody from the floor? Anybody have any questions? Anything that they'd like to contribute?
Crickets. Aditha asked, do you know if the conference will have a virtual option?
I do know.
Got it. Enough said.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so more to come on that.
Yeah. There's Sekou and Eric and I have
Yeah.
access to some things, and we also have NDAs that we just can't talk about some things. Okay.
So an official announcement from Tableau will come out about the different options.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, thank you in general for having me. This is really nice to attend. I'm super not local to all of you, but yeah, there's nothing local to me at all that I'm aware of. So it was nice to hop in.
Come
You
on
know,
back.
thank you for saying that, because one of the things that COVID did on a positive basis allows us to reach out beyond Nashville, and it also allows us to get speakers and other people outside of Nashville to participate. So thank you for saying that.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. Thanks for all the presenters and everybody who came today. Everybody have a great night, and we will see you all in February.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye,
Bye all.
everyone.
I have a question. Sergio, is this your bike?
No, it's not. I'm not quite sure how I
Okay.
got there, but I wish it was.